Okay. What is going on, everybody? Good evening. I know, a little bit later than I usually post, but special occasion. Hard Knocks, Seattle Seahawks, episode 2 just went live on HBO Max. I just finished watching it. I actually just finished writing an article for Seahawks on SI on the episode. So if you want to go check that out, go to Seahawks on SI and check out what I just posted. It should be the featured article for the rest of the night. And now we're going to make a video to talk about it a little bit because it was definitely an interesting episode. We got 3 more to go after this one. So let's dissect what they gave us. As always, Hard Knocks is a mixture of entertainment and information. So we're going to focus more on the information stuff, but the entertainment stuff definitely has value too. So it's all good. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks. So this episode, first thing we see, the kind of the big hook trying to pull you into the episode is Derrick Hall's a little bit out of control. That's basically the takeaway, and I don't think it's a coincidence that the last thing we saw last week in the first episode was Derrick Hall instigating a fight, and then the first thing we see in this episode is Derrick Hall getting a little overzealous, rushing Sam Darnold during practice. So the very first thing we see in this episode is Derrick Hall bull rushing in a situation where the coaches don't want him to bull rush. And then he ends up getting close to the quarterback. And this happens twice in a row. And Mike gets really mad and basically takes him off the field. And it gets a little bit heated. And you can see there's frustration and anger because, of course, we don't want anything bad to happen to our quarterbacks right now. And Derrick seems like he's not really getting it. So there's definitely a bit of frustration there. So that's like the first thing that kind of pulls you into the episode. And they revisit it later in the episode as well. Like more than halfway through, they show the same scene again with a little bit more context. So that was kind of the big focal point of the episode to me. Hall needs to chill. I think that's kind of the big takeaway here. Derrick Hall needs to bring the temperature down a little bit, needs to operate in a way that allows the quarterbacks to stay safe, and then he needs to bring that energy back for the regular season. So, doesn't seem like it's a problem. And look, Derrick Hall's great. We've got him on an extension for several years, but it does seem like that was causing a little bit of a problem, and he didn't react the greatest to it. There was definitely a sense of him going, well, what do you want me to do? What am I supposed to do? Like he didn't understand how to let off when you get kind of close to the quarterback because you see other players doing it. Like they even had a little segment where they pulled him into a film room and were like, look at what Mike Morris is doing. Mike Morris wins the rep or kind of wins the rep, but then he lays off. He doesn't actually try to go get to Sam Darnold. So it seemed like everything was cool, but Derrick Hall needs to chill. That was, I think, the big initial takeaway from the episode. All right, so the rest of the episode, and again, this is going to be a little bit jumbled because a lot of the stuff that happens in the episode doesn't link together cleanly. They just kind of show stuff as it happens from day to day, and there's not necessarily an A to B correlation. But after that, we had this one segment where, like, I think it was Mason Richman and Riley Mills were doing this test of strength with sledgehammers. So that's kind of more like the fun stuff that I'm talking about with Hard Knocks, right? All right, guys, let's take a quick break here to talk a little bit about Prize Picks, currently the #1 sports pick app in America. The app is very easy to use. Check it out to my left here. You can do player picks, where you just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Or you can pick teams, where you pick winners, spread, or total on any game or fight. The app is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. Right now, they have a great offer. You can play your first $5 lineup and get $150 in lineups if you win. All you have to do is use code HMA when you sign up. It's a brand new offer, best time possible to get on the app. So get on over there and get to winning that first lineup. So remember, Prize Picks, code HMA. Download the app today and remember to always gamble responsibly. So there was this one segment in the episode about Mitch Johnson. Mitch Johnson is the coach of the San Antonio Spurs in the NBA. And I mentioned this when it happened in real time. I didn't know exactly what Mitch Johnson's connection to the Pacific Northwest was, but I knew he had one. I guess his dad was actually a player on the Sonics team that won the title in the 70s. And I knew quite a few of the players on that team, but I didn't know about that. So that was kind of cool. But he was able to participate in a little segment with Mike in his office where they were basically like almost exchanging notes because obviously they're in different sports leagues. They can't really hurt each other. You wouldn't think anyway. So you had Mitch Johnson and Brian Wright, who's the Spurs general manager, basically talking about their experience with their teams over the last year. There was this one part where McDonald was talking about how this year's training camp is going to be the same as last year's, and then talking about the areas in which it's going to also be a little bit different, and talking about how he balances the need to be the same as they did last year, because obviously last year was so successful, while also mixing it up. Mitch Johnson and Brian talked about drafting Victor Wembanyama when they realized how good he was going to be, when they realized this was something special, and they kind of exchanged notes on that. It's just another way that Mike is looking for unconventional ways to make his coaching better, and it was cool. It was hard for me to get the sense that anything concrete was taken from it, but it's something that Mike seems to have an appreciation for. All right, so that was the second main highlight. There was this one set of clips where I don't know if it's just the editing, but there seemed to be a little bit of focus on Cooper Kupp. And there's been some buzz from Cooper Kupp in camp so far that he's ready to turn back the clock like he's 27 years old again. Now, don't get me wrong. Cooper Kupp is not going to have some 1,500-yard season or anything like that. The offense wouldn't allow him, and ultimately we have JSN. He's the guy who's going to have a 1,500-yard season, if anybody. But what if Cooper Kupp is turning back the clock in terms of ability, and that when we need him to make the big catch, to make the game-winning catch, to make the game-sealing catch, he will be there for us? So it feels like Hard Knocks is kind of sort of building up that narrative as well. And look, if Cooper Kupp can kind of dial one back for even most of the season or part of the season, I'd put our receiver core against any other receiver core in football, man. There are only a couple I'd say are better. So it felt like they were building to that. They didn't say it outright, but there was this whole mini segment of Cooper Kupp catches. One of them was on Witherspoon. I think another was on Job. Feels like something is building there. There was this one extended segment that felt kind of goofy. I don't know how you guys felt about it, but it was the spin rate with Sam Darnold. So if you watch the episode, let me know what you thought about that. It was different. I'll grant you that. I've never heard of Sam Darnold's spin rate before. Apparently, Sam Darnold, when he throws the football, puts more spin on the ball than any other quarterback in football, and his spin rate is about 100 more than the average quarterback. Now, Jake Peets said this creates a more catchable and accurate ball. Cooper Kupp sounded like he also agreed with that. Although, again, I don't know about the science behind that. You'd definitely have to do a bit of a study there, but it was interesting. But it also kind of felt like they were reaching a little bit for a topic. It kind of felt like they were trying to figure out something they could say about Darnold. So they went with, oh, let's go with spin rate. Because I don't know. I follow a lot of football stuff. I follow a lot of Seahawks stuff. I've never heard of Sam Darnold's spin rate before. Is that a thing? Is that something that people talk about and I just have never seen it? I don't know. There was a whole segment about shadow boxing, which I guess is one of the big hobbies that the players have in the locker room, on the sideline. Whenever there's a free moment, they're doing this shadow boxing thing, which I'll be perfectly honest, watching it and hearing them try to explain it, I didn't totally understand it, but they're having fun. It's kind of like they basically said, it's their version of rock, paper, scissors, and it's a great way for them to have fun while still competing against each other. And it's a little bit goofy to watch, but it seems like the players are having fun, and that's really all that matters. So that was kind of a fluff segment, but also kind of not, because I don't know if other teams are doing that. And if this Seahawks team is the only team that's doing that, then I guess that's notable, because we are the only teams right now that are defending NFL champions. So take away something from that. It was, I don't know, I was watching it trying to figure out exactly how it worked, and I just wasn't picking it up. I wasn't picking up what they were putting down. More than anything, it kind of seems like a way for them to get their competitive fire out without hurting each other, which is kind of similar to the sledgehammer thing they did with Riley Mills and Mason Richmond, where both players basically hold up sledgehammers, and the first person to have to put them down loses, something like that. And that was a way for them to kind of burn off the energy they had from the field where they almost got into a fight. So it kind of felt like a little bit of that. There's this other segment that was a lot of fun where they talked about how MOB and this whole Seattle Seahawk dark side defense and the team itself, the mission of the team is all about, it's almost like a religion. There's this one segment that almost kind of sounds like they're in a church, and they've got this guy up front. I'm not sure who it was. But he was like giving this speech, and it was kind of like a sermon, and they had graphics up on the screen that were kind of like, they almost sounded like quotes from the Bible. That was a fun segment. Interesting, kind of interesting way to see how the players and the team looks at things, and you can see why they have built something so special. I don't know how many other teams do stuff like that, but I would guess not many. I would assume that teams like the New York Jets are probably not doing stuff like that. So it does speak to the character of this building, and it speaks to the culture that has been built. One really cool thing that happened near the end of the episode, and one thing that I recommend that everyone check out, even if you don't watch the rest of the episode, Terion Arnold. There was a discussion by John Schneider about Terion Arnold. Will they sign him? Will they not? They're aware of the issues. They're aware of the problems, but John Schneider believes that he can help this team because they do believe in his talent, which, I mean, he is talented, right? I think we all understand that this is a very talented individual. You don't go in the first round. You're not a big time recruit of Alabama without being talented. And then they showed him in for the visit with the team, where admittedly, we didn't get to see what Mike thought of the visit necessarily, other than what he's already said publicly. But we had him in. There was a segment where John was talking to, I think it was his brother, Joey, and Joey believes that Terion Arnold will be allowed to play during the preseason. And there's also another segment where they talk about how they met with Milroe, who has a relationship with Arnold from their time at Alabama, and Jalen presumably vouched for him, vouched for his character. And the bottom line here, I think the ultimate takeaway for me would be, if any team signs Terion Arnold, I feel like it's going to be this team. And I still don't think that we will. I feel like nobody's going to touch that until he gets completely clear of this situation in a way that may not happen. But I am starting to get the sense that if anybody does, it's going to be us. Based on what we saw in the episode, it's not just a lark. It's not just a way to waste time. It is a serious interest. We think that he can help us, and we are open-minded on whether or not we're going to accept or overlook or take his side of the story on the legal issues. Now, again, I don't know everything about what's going on with his off-field stuff, but my understanding is that he definitely had something to do with it. How bad it is up for debate, but it sure seems like he was involved. So I'm a little bit surprised, but I think that talent that Terion Arnold has is very tempting to this team right now. So it's starting to at least feel possible. And that was really most of the stuff in the episode. There was some fun stuff as well. There was a few minutes on Nicky Manwari. We saw him in the pool as he's rehabbing. Now, we, as of today, know that he passed the physical, so there's not a lot of drama there, right? We know how that story ends, but it's still good to see him. Yeah, he had the opportunity to talk about the decision he made to get the surgery and why, and et cetera, et cetera. There's this one cool part where McDonald referred to him as a cross between Derwin James and Kyle Hamilton. Those might be the two best safeties in football, by the way. It's possible. We had a segment on Leonard Williams doing gardening. We had Derrick Hall and his trucks. We even got to see him take one of his trucks through a drive-through, which, I mean, that might be the only drive-through in the world that he can get that truck through. That's what I'll say about that. So, kind of fun. We got a little bit of footage of the mock game as well in the episode because they did show that, which gives us an idea of how behind the episodes are. It's only a few days because the mock game was a few days ago. So when something happens, they're able to get it in the episode a few days later. And that was most of it, right? A little bit of JSN. There was this one part where JSN and I think it was Frisman Jackson got into a little bit of had a little bit of an issue with each other while they're working through the new terminology of the offense, because even though the offense is very similar, some of the terminology has changed, and JSN was kind of pushing back, and Frisman Jackson, I think it was Frisman anyway, was pushing back the other way, and it was all in good fun. I don't think anybody got upset or anything, but that was a notable segment of the episode as well. And those were my main takeaways. That was a recap of the episode. So let me know what you guys think. That was episode 2. Really good. Had a lot of fun with it. Let me know what you guys took away. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Check out my article on Seahawks on SI. More videos coming tomorrow. And we are very close, guys. We are very close. Go Hawks.